So it's So we're starting up the Distant Worlds expedition here. This is from 2016 when I was on the Distant Worlds. Now what I'm trying to capture here is the differences in textures of the worlds as I go from one waypoint to another. So this is back in 2016. I'm just about to go to open play as I was trying to look for commanders. I think I was working, so I wasn't able to be in some of the first waypoints. So one of the things of between the 2016 version and Horizons and Odyssey is the textures are much smoother. You can more or less drive along without coming across big boulders. The only large boulders were those that you would get your resources from. So there's the supercluster just ahead. Supercluster of stars. I'll just recall my ship and speed it up a bit here to There's a little bit of a slight difference in the sound with the Anaconda when it boosts away, as it gives a slightly different sound to the present
capacity exceeded.
Slightly different sound. Get another boost. Here you just get a view of the location, the crater, and we're in the crater with the kind of little mountain in the centre of the place we want to actually, is where the waypoint meetup is. Here we bring it this time into the crater. It is much kind of, should we say, softer, not as deep as some of as Odyssey and Horizons, the Beyond series one. It also has streaks which you don't get in the Beyond, which came out in 2018. just flown over. It doesn't really matter. I don't think on the day, as I record a few commanders on the ridge. View of the cluster. In Elite Dangerous, most of the clusters seem to be kind of in these long agonal triangle, rectangular shape. How they lay them out. So there wasn't many people. Obviously, at this point, I don't think I was friends with many commanders that were on the trip, so there's only like 2 there. I don't think I even had access to the Distant Worlds group at the moment, private group, so I did most of this was meeting people who were in open mode, although I don't think you had any many players that were hunting around or trying to destroy other commanders that were flying out here, but obviously that is one of the risks of flying in open. But any accidents happen with me crashing into things. Just landing in the ridge. I think I was I'm not sure exactly which side there was the main, but it was probably up one of these corners along this kind of circular rim around the crater. So here I'm just trying to trying different open and mode and trying to see. I don't know if I had access to the private group at that time. And yeah, the terrain is softer. So you got a little bit of a view over. I think I did buy the gold version paint job on this Anaconda. This Anaconda is no longer with me. I think I sold it off after the expedition. Don't know if I had a name for it either. Unless I think I did sell it off for other ships. So yeah, open man. I think there was only a few commanders that I made friends with on this expedition so far. So it was quite a bit lonely in that regard, mostly landing by myself. So I've just started in Odyssey here, and I just wanted to show the difference in textures and location here, the superclusters, all those stars, and the Omega Nebula. So I think it's in the sunlight on the far side there. So mixed feelings about the new textures in Odyssey compared to the Horizons Beyond series. They seem to be, and I think at this point because there's obviously updates keep changing some of the settings and graphical settings. Some of the settings mean, although I'm getting a higher frame rate of about 90 frames to 100 frames a second here, I've actually some of the graphics are not as kind of smooth or sharp at close inspection. Now I'm not actually really as happy, I would say, as it's mixed, because sometimes the textures and the new textures do seem to make the planet more interesting, but in other situations where you got like locations where you've been before, in this case it seems to actually make the actual surface less realistic. And now also I need to do some graphical changes on to make the graphics look a bit more smoother and less kind of, doesn't quite make it as realistic as, or as good as in Odyssey. I mean, as good as in Horizons Beyond. You notice the crater doesn't exist. The terrain's been kind of changed quite significantly. Just getting an idea of the textures, and notice it's kind of deeper, I'd say, a little bit more filled in, and obviously you've got more the craters around the edges that come up. It looks to me more realistic, more like what the moon looks like. You don't get these streaks across the surface flowing outwards that you do in Odyssey, Dangerous Odyssey, and the older versions of Dangerous Horizons in 2016. So yeah, it's kind of, I like the textures more here, but it almost feels like a downgrade in Odyssey, because I don't think the terrain really comes out as quite as good here as in this, how the baked terrain is in on-series Horizons.
Low gravity warning. Ship dismissed.
I think one of the main differences is just closer up to the actual SRV and down right at the textures. Then I think the Odyssey starts to have a better appeal because you get better realism in how the terrain and this structure comes out. It's also more rocky, larger rocks and boulders. Although they have lots of little rocks, it's not quite the same. But in a way, it's almost it really is a bit of a loss in the graphical change in Odyssey. So obviously they've increased so now I'm getting higher frame rates, but at the expense of some of the graphical improvements, because obviously there was a lot of problem with the graphics being too or the frame rate being too low for noticeable. But in this case, it's really, the textures are not as good as I would like. I think it's something I kind of been having a bit of issue trying to get the textures and that to and the graphics to kind of look without some of the loss in the textures. And this is at ultimate settings, or as far as I know. Well, I think it's not quite on ultimate. Not sure what level I had it here. But I am getting high, nearly up about 90 to 100 frames at some point. So So we're going to drive over to the edge of the crater. Speed it up. There we go. I mean, I suppose if you never seen or not familiar with Horizons Beyond Season, it might not be as bad or come across as bad, perhaps. But here there's definitely, I was noticing some of the textures looked like they weren't as smooth, or kind of how to describe, sort of like you could almost see the pixelations. So in this case I decide to see if I can make some alterations to get something a bit more what I'd expect from the improved. Note that I am using an old graphics card which I bought in 2016, believe it or not. I think got it around a similar time that I started I went on the Distant Worlds. A Radeon Fury, which is actually not too bad. It's certainly keeps a good frame rate. I am getting an upgrade in a couple of weeks to this card. Should go for another cheap card that I get from Amazon, most likely the Radeon X700 XT. So it should offer about twice the performance for about similar price, I think. I think I got this card off. Might have got it off eBay. I'm not sure when I got it. It was many years ago. But yeah, there you could see there's like little pixelations. So I'm trying to get the textures to be smooth, to come out, and to perhaps increase the distance, the draw distance. I've put it up to 2 now. The super sampling. So that's quite good, but it does, I think, lower the frame rate to about 20 frames, 23 there, which is a bit on the low side. Basically I want to be about 30 frames a second for so back to 1x on the sampling seems to give, and that's 1.25, which is a little bit better. So I decide, I think, to finish off here at about 1.5. This gives about a frame rate of about 40. Here it goes. Got a frame rate of 160, which is for a 0.5 sample rate. Super sampling. So that's Ultra has put it back to about 68. So yeah, now I settle for about 1.5 in the super sampling. And it's at 43 frames per second, which I think is reasonably good. Do have a slight, as stuff starts to pop in, this is where you'd rely on higher frequency to increase the rate of speed stuff pops into existence. So I think that's as good as you're gonna, at least I'm going to get really with the graphics cards I've got. Let's see if when I get the new graphics card that I get a higher, how it performs in frame rate. Hopefully it should have about twice the frame rate speed, but so I'd be expecting about 60 frames a second for the graphics card. Have to see if it performs to that. But yeah, I'm not so happy with the landscape. Seems to be some not quite as, I think it's just, I mean, if it's some of the worlds it looks better, and some worlds like this one it doesn't seem to be. Almost when you see the Horizons Beyond season version, it looks it's a step up from perhaps the 2016 Horizons, but in the I really kind of not pleased that we lost these kind of curator, and kind of almost looks like a step down in the graphics and textures of the world. It perhaps went towards trying to make it perhaps more realism, but I think this is actually more real to, if you, in some ways. But this, like I say, it's not all the worlds. Some worlds it does look like they look more realistic than and it's noticeably better. But it depends on the worlds and how they seem to be, and especially when you're familiar with some of the areas as well. And certainly it's nicer to get up to close to the Fargoid creatures and structures and things as actual person, and have a kind of see how large they are relatively, rather than just driving along hills for long periods of time. But I kind of like the textures from the Horizons Beyond on this particular world, but not all worlds are the same, so it depends which one. In this case, I would say it does look like this is better. We'll have to see how it compares to other worlds on the journey to the next location, which I think is the Eagle Nebula, and see if the world there is better or worse.